In the stillness of the night, when shadows stretch long and secrets whisper from the past, some stories refuse to stay buried. Welcome to Shadows of the Past, where we unravel the chilling truths behind crimes that haunt the edges of memory. Tonight, in Volume 35, we bring you 11 tales of betrayal, rage, and unthinkable acts, each one a window into the darkest corners of the human soul. These are not just stories, they are echoes of lives shattered, of justice sought, and of mysteries that linger like a cold fog. As the rain falls softly outside, let these accounts draw you into a world where every detail matters, where every choice carries weight, and where the past is never truly gone. Settle in, dim the lights, and let the stories unfold, but be warned, once you step into these shadows, there's no turning back. Our first case takes us to a quiet Sicilian town, where a beloved couple's home became a scene of unimaginable horror. This is the story of the Palagonia Murders, and it begins now. Part 1. The Palagonia Murders. Vincenzo Solano and Mercedes Ibanez. The summer of 2015 was warm and unassuming in Palagonia, a small Sicilian town nestled among rolling hills and ancient olive groves. Life here moved slowly, guided by tradition and the quiet rhythm of community. Vincenzo Solano, 68, and his wife, Mercedes Ibanez, 70, were the heart of this world. Known for their generosity, they'd spent decades building a life together, raising 2 daughters, Rosita and Manuel, and welcoming neighbors into their modest home with open arms. Vincenzo, a retired factory worker with a quick laugh, tended his garden with care. Mercedes, with her warm smile, was never without a story or a plate of homemade pasta for a visitor. To the people of Palagonia, they were family. But on the morning of August 24th, 2015, that sense of safety shattered, and the town would never be the same. It was Manuel who found them. She'd stopped by to check on her parents, a routine visit that turned into a nightmare. The front door was ajar, an odd detail for a couple known for their caution. Stepping inside, she called out, but silence answered. Her heart began to race. In the living room, she found her father, Vincenzo, slumped in a chair. His throat had been slashed, blood pooling beneath him, his hands still clenched as if he'd fought for his life. The room was chaos. Furniture overturned, a lamp shattered on the floor. Panic rising, Manuel searched for her mother. She found Mercedes outside, in the courtyard below the balcony, her body broken and lifeless. The police would later confirm she'd been thrown from the second floor, her skull fractured from the impact. The brutality was staggering, unthinkable in a town where everyone knew each other's name. Word spread quickly, and Palagonia froze in disbelief. Who could do this to Vincenzo and Mercedes? The couple had no enemies, no debts, no secrets, at least none the town knew of. Neighbors gathered outside the cordoned-off house, whispering prayers and clutching each other's hands. The police arrived, their faces grim as they surveyed the scene. Blood trails suggested a struggle, but there were no signs of forced entry. Whoever did this had been let in or had a way to enter unnoticed. The investigators' first thought was robbery, but Vincenzo's wallet and Mercedes' jewelry were untouched. This wasn't about money, this was personal. As the investigation began, a name emerged. Mamadou Camara, an 18-year-old asylum seeker from Ivory Coast. Camara had arrived in Italy months earlier, one of thousands fleeing conflict and poverty. He was housed at the Cara Mineo Refugee Center, a sprawling facility just outside Palagonia. The center was a point of tension in the region, with locals uneasy about the influx of migrants. Camara, young and quiet, had kept to himself, but now he was at the center of a storm. Police detained him after a tip from the refugee center staff. In his possession were items to stop the investigators cold. Vincenz's blood-stained clothes, a stolen phone, and a pair of Mercedes earrings. The evidence was damning, but Camara's story was anything but clear. He claimed he'd found the items discarded near the center, insisting he was innocent. "I didn't know them," he said, his voice trembling in the interrogation room. "I took the clothes because I had nothing." But the police weren't buying it. Security footage from the refugee center showed Camara leaving the night of the murders, slipping into the darkness with a backpack. He returned hours later, visibly agitated. Forensic tests sealed his fate. Traces of Vincent's blood were found not just on the clothes, but under Camara's fingernails. Fibers from Mercedes' dress clung to his shoes. The pieces were falling into place, but the why remained elusive. The prosecution painted a chilling picture. They believed Camara had targeted the Solano home, perhaps intending to rob it, only for the plan to spiral into violence. Vincencio, they theorized, had confronted the intruder, leading to a brutal fight. Mercedes, woken by the noise, became a witness who couldn't be left alive. The act of throwing her from the balcony suggested rage, a need to destroy. But there were holes in the story. Why would Camara, a teenager with no history of violence, choose this house? Why leave valuable items behind? Some whispered of a deeper motive, something personal, but no evidence supported it. Others pointed to the refugee center, suggesting Camara hadn't acted alone. The center housed thousands, and rumors of gang activity swirled, but no accomplices were ever identified. As the trial began in 2016, Palagonia was a town divided. The courtroom buzzed with tension, reporters crowding the steps, locals watching from the sidelines. Camara sat silently, his eyes fixed on the floor. The Solano daughters, Rosita and Manuel, attended every session, their faces etched with grief. The prosecution leaned heavily on the forensic evidence, presenting the bloodstained clothes and DNA matches to a hushed room. Camaro's defense argued he'd been scapegoated, a convenient target in a town grappling with fear and prejudice. The police needed a suspect, his lawyer said. They found a boy who didn't belong. But the jury wasn't swayed. After 3 days of deliberation, Mamadou Camaro was found guilty of double murder. The judge's voice was steady as he delivered the sentence: life in prison, no parole. The verdict brought relief to some, but it didn't heal Palagonia. The Solano home stood empty, a ghost of the warmth it once held. Rosita and Manuel moved away, unable to bear the memories. The town's grief gave way to anger, with protests outside the refugee center demanding its closure. Anti-immigration rhetoric flared, painting Camara as a symbol of a broader threat. Community leaders pleaded for unity, but the scars ran deep. This wasn't about borders, a local priest said at a memorial for Vincenzo and Mercedes. This was about evil. Yet for many, the question of motive lingered like a shadow. Was Camara a lone predator, driven by impulse? Or was there something more, something the investigation missed? Years later, the case still haunts Palagonia. The olive groves are as green as ever, the sun still warms the hills, but the laughter of Vincenzo and Mercedes is gone. Their daughters visit their graves laying flowers and whispering prayers, but the pain never fades. Camaro remains behind bars, his appeals exhausted, his story unchanged. Some believe he's guilty beyond doubt, others wonder if the truth is more complex, buried in the chaos of that August night. In a town built on trust, the Palagonia Murders left a wound that time can't close. As we leave this story, the rain continues to fall, a soft reminder that some secrets stay hidden, even when justice is served. Part 2. The Murder of Sultanat Nukanova. In the glittering heart of Astana, Kazakhstan, where sleek skyscrapers pierce the sky and ambition hums through the streets, life can seem like a carefully curated dream. But beneath the polished surface, darkness festers. And for one woman, that darkness became a nightmare she couldn't escape. Sultanat Nukanova was a star in her own right. A 31-year-old astrologer whose charisma and insight captivated thousands. Her social media glowed with wisdom, her voice a beacon for those seeking meaning in the stars. But in November 2023, her light was snuffed out in a crime so brutal, it shook a nation to its core. This is the story of Sultanat Nukanova, a tale of love twisted into control, of betrayal, and of a fight for justice that changed Kazakhstan forever. Settle in as the rain taps softly against the window, and let the shadows of this tragedy unfold. Sultanat was no ordinary woman. Born into a close-knit family, she'd carved a path of her own, blending intellect with intuition. Her astrology practice wasn't just a business, it was a calling. Clients adored her, drawn to her warmth and uncanny ability to read their lives through the cosmos. By 2022, she was a rising figure, her online presence vibrant, her future bright. But even stars can fall, and Sultanat's descent began with a man named Kuandik Bishimbayev. He was 42, a former economy minister with a polished exterior and a powerful name. To the world, he was a success story, wealthy, influential, a man who moved in elite circles. To Sultanat, he was something else entirely. Their paths crossed in early 2022, a chance meeting at a social event in Astana. Bishimbayev was smitten, his charm relentless. He showered Sultanat with attention, gifts, and promises of a life together. But she hesitated. The age gap? Over a decade. Nod at her, and as an astrologer, she studied their charts, finding no harmony in the stars. It's not meant to be, she told a friend, her voice firm, yet Bishimbayev wouldn't relent. He pursued her with a fervor that bordered on obsession, calling daily, sending flowers, appearing at her favorite cafes. To some, it seemed romantic. To others, it was a warning. Sultanat, perhaps swayed by his persistence or her own hope for love, eventually gave in. By December 2022, they were married, a whirlwind union that stunned her inner circle. Her family, protective and traditional, had reservations, but Sultanat's smile reassured them. She believed she'd found her partner. She was wrong. The honeymoon phase was fleeting. Within weeks, the man who'd wooed her with poetry revealed a darker side. Bishimbayev was controlling, his charm a mask for jealousy and dominance. He demanded Sultanat quit her work, insisting her astrology practice was frivolous. "You're my wife now," he'd say, his tone sharp. "You don't need to perform for strangers." Sultanat's fiercely independent resisted, but the pressure. He monitored her phone, questioned her friendships, and isolated her from her family. Her once vibrant social media went silent, her posts replaced by cryptic quotes about resilience. Friends noticed the change. Her laughter dulled, her eyes shadowed. "He's suffocating her," one confided to another. But Sultanat brushed off their concerns. "It's just an adjustment," she'd say, forcing a smile. Behind closed doors, the adjustment was far more sinister. Bishimbayev's control escalated into abuse. He'd berate her for minor infractions, a late dinner, a missed call, his voice cutting like a blade. Then came the physical violence, a slap here, a shove there, each incident leaving Sultanat more broken. She confided in her sister, Agaram, about the bruises, but swore her to secrecy. "I can handle it," she insisted, her pride warring with her pain. Agaran begged her to leave, but Sultanat clung to hope, believing the man she'd married could change. But she didn't know that hope would be her undoing. November 8th, 2023 started like any other day in Astana's crisp autumn. Sultanat and Bishimbayev attended a concert, a rare public outing. To onlookers, they seemed the perfect couple. Her in a sleek black dress, him in a tailored suit, their hands entwined. But beneath the facade, tension simmered. They'd argued earlier, a quiet spat about Sultanat's refusal to delete her Instagram. At the concert, Bishimbayev's mood darkened, his grip on her arm too tight. After the event, they headed to a restaurant owned by a relative, a place where Bishimbayev felt untouchable. It was here, in the early hours of November 9, that the night turned deadly. The restaurant was nearly empty, the staff lingering in the shadows. Sultanat and Bishimbayev sat in a private booth, their voices low at first, then rising. Witnesses later recalled hearing sharp words, a glass clinking too hard on the table. The argument exploded when Sultanat stood to leave, her face flushed with defiance. Bishimbayev grabbed her, dragging her back into the booth. What happened next was captured in fragments by grainy surveillance footage, a silent witness to horror. At 3:17 a.m., Bishimbayev struck Sultanat, a vicious blow to her face. She stumbled, clutching the table, but he didn't stop. For hours, he beat her. Punches, kicks, her body crumpling under the assault. The footage showed him dragging her by the hair, her limbs limp, her resistance fading. By 6 a.m., Sultanat was barely conscious, her breathing shallow. Bishimbayev's rage was unrelenting, but his next move was chillingly calculated. Instead of calling for help, he phoned a fortune teller asking if Sultanat would survive. The call lasted 12 minutes, his voice calm as he described her injuries. "She's not moving much," he said, as if discussing the weather. The fortune teller, horrified, urged him to call an ambulance, but he hung up. He then turned to his brother, Bakichan Bejanov, who'd been at the restaurant. Together, they began to cover their tracks. Bishimbayev ordered the staff to delete the surveillance footage, but a single camera, overlooked in the chaos, kept recording. At 7:23 a.m., he finally called emergency services, his voice feigning panic. "My wife's hurt," he said. "I don't know what happened." Paramedics arrived to find Sultanat lifeless, her body covered in bruises, her skull fractured. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The police descended on the restaurant, their faces hardening as they viewed the body. Sultanat's injuries told a story of unimaginable cruelty, over 30 distinct wounds, from her shattered jaw to the hemorrhages in her brain. The coroner later confirmed she'd endured hours of torture. her death caused by a catastrophic brain injury. The surviving footage was a bombshell, showing Bishimbayev's brutality in stark clarity. He was arrested on the spot, his brother detained as an accomplice. Astana buzzed with shock, the city's elite scrambling to distance themselves from the disgraced minister. But for Sultanat's family, the pain was just beginning. The investigation moved swiftly, driven by public outrage. Sultanat's followers flooded social media with tributes, her final posts, Abeb's poll quotes about strength and freedom, taking on a haunting weight. Her family, led by Agarim, demanded answers. She was radiant, Agarim told reporters, her voice breaking. He stole her from us. The police uncovered a trail of evidence beyond the footage. Text messages between Bishimbayev and Sultanat revealed his controlling nature, with demands like delete your account now and threats of consequences. Witnesses at the restaurant described his jealousy, how he'd snap if Sultanat so much as smiled at another man. Bishanov, under pressure, admitted to helping delete footage but claimed he didn't know Sultanat was dying. I thought she'd be okay, he said, his words hollow. As the trial loomed in March 2024, Kazakhstan watched with bated breath. Bishimbayev's wealth and connections made him a formidable defendant, his legal team arguing he'd lost control in a moment of passion. They painted Sultanat as provocative, claiming she'd pushed him to the edge. The prosecution dismantled this narrative, presenting the footage as undeniable proof of premeditated cruelty. This was not a moment, the lead prosecutor said, her voice steady. This was a massacre. The courtroom was packed, Sultanat's family in the front row, their eyes fixed on Bishimbayev. He sat expressionless, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the monster on the screen. The footage played in silence, each blow drawing gasps from the gallery. Ajrim clutched her mother's hand, tears streaming down her face. The defense's attempts to shift blame faltered against the weight of evidence. Forensic experts testified to the prolonged nature of the attack, noting Sultanat's defensive wounds, bruises on her arms, scratches where she'd tried to shield herself. The fortune teller's testimony was a turning point, her voice trembling as she recounted Bishimbayev's eerie calm. He didn't care she lived, she said. Bejanan's role was dissected, his failure to intervene earning him scorn. The trial stretched over weeks each day, peeling back layers of Bishimbayev's facade. His past came under scrutiny, allegations of corruption, a history of volatile relationships. Sultanat, they learned, wasn't his first victim. Other women had fled his temper, their stories buried by his influence. On May 10, 2024, the verdict came. The judge's voice echoed in the hushed courtroom. Kuandik Bishimbayev was guilty of murder with particular cruelty. The sentence, 24 years in a maximum security prison, drew a collective exhale from Sultanat's family. But they weren't satisfied. He should never see the sun again, Agarim said outside the courthouse, her voice fierce. Bazedan, they received 4 years for complicity, a lighter sentence that sparked debate. Some saw it as justice, others, including Sultanat's family, wanted life for both. The case didn't end in the courtroom. It ignited a firestorm in Kazakhstan, where domestic violence was often swept under the rug. Sultanat's murder became a rallying cry. Protests erupted in Astana, women holding signs with her smiling face demanding stronger laws. Her story, amplified by the footage that couldn't be ignored, forced a reckoning. In April 2024, just before the trial's end, Kazakhstan passed Sultanat's law, increasing penalties for domestic abuse and mandating better victim protections. It was a bittersweet victory born from a loss too great to measure. Sultanat's family channeled their grief into advocacy, creating a foundation in her name to support survivors. She'd want this, Iram said, her voice softer now. She'd want no one else to suffer. But the scars remain. Astana skyline still gleams, but for those who knew Sultanata, it's dimmer without her light. Her Instagram, frozen in time, is a digital memorial flooded with messages from strangers. You deserved better. Bishimbayev, stripped of his power, sits in a cell, his appeals pending but unlikely to succeed. Bayanov, released in 2028, will carry the stain of his inaction. The restaurant, once a place of laughter, closed its doors, its walls holding secrets too heavy to bear. The Sultanet's family visits her grave, laying flowers and whispering her name, their love for her unbroken by death. What drove Bishambayev to such cruelty? Was it jealousy, a need to dominate, or something colder, more calculated? The footage shows a man unhinged, but his actions afterward, calm, methodical, suggest a mind that knew exactly what it was doing. Some say he saw Sultanet as a possession, her independence a threat to his control. Others believe his fall from political grace fueled a rage he unleashed on her. The truth perhaps lies in the silence between those blows, a void where love should have been. As the rain falls outside, it carries the weight of Sultanari's story, a reminder that even in the brightest lives, shadows can grow long. Her voice, once a guide through the stars, is gone, but her legacy burns bright. In the laws she inspired, the lives she touched, and the justice she won. Yet the question lingers, soft as a whisper in the dark. How many others are trapped in the same cycle, waiting for someone to see their pain? This is the murder of Sultanata Nikanova, a tragedy that broke a nation's heart and refused to be forgotten. As we leave Astana behind, the next shadow waits. A story of assault and a fight for justice in Chile. But that's for another night. Part 3, the Antonia Barra case. In the vibrant lakeside town of Pucón, Chile, where turquoise waters lap against volcanic shores and music festivals pulse with life, the nights are meant for joy. But for one young woman, a single night in September 2017 became a descent into darkness that would ripple far beyond her small corner of the world. Antonia Barra was 21, a university student with a radiant smile and a heart full of dreams. She was the kind of person who lit up a room, her laughter contagious, her spirit unbreakable, or so it seemed. But on that fateful night, a predator stole her light, and her story would ignite a movement that shook Chile to its core. This is the story of Antonia Barra, a tale of violation, courage, and a nation forced to confront its shadows. As the rain falls softly outside, settle into the quiet and let this haunting truth unfold. Pucón in spring is a postcard of beauty, its streets alive with tourists and locals basking in the season's warmth. Antonia, a student at the University of Temuco, was home for the weekend, eager to soak in the energy of the Fiestas Patrias, Chile's independence celebrations. She was studying to become a psychologist, her empathy and sharp mind already shaping her into someone who could change lives. Her family, Father Alejandro, Mother Marcela, and siblings, adored her, their bond tight-knit and full of love. Antonia was their pride, a young woman who balanced ambition with a zest for life. On September 17, 2017, she joined friends at a music festival, the air thick with salsa rhythms and the clink of glasses. It was a night for dancing, for losing herself in the moment. She wore a bright top, her dark hair loose, her eyes sparkling with excitement. No one could have known it would be her last night of freedom. At the Black Room Club, the festival's heartbeat, Antonia sipped drinks with her friends Consuelo and Jose, her laughter rising above the music. The club was packed, bodies swaying under neon lights, the atmosphere electric. She was tipsy, her guard down, when a man approached her. His name was Martin Predinas, 28, a local with a charming smile and a reputation that whispered trouble. To Antonia, he was just another face in the crowd, someone offering a dance. They moved together on the dance floor, her steps carefree, his gaze calculating. Friends noticed him lingering, his attention intense, but in the chaos of the night, it didn't raise alarms. As the hours passed, Antonia grew more intoxicated. Her movements slower, her words slurred. Consuelo urged her to slow down, but Antonia waved her off, caught in the moment. It was a mistake that would cost her everything. Around 2 a.m., surveillance footage captured a chilling moment. Antonia, unsteady on her feet, was led out of the club by Predinas. The grainy video showed her reluctance, her body leaning away as he guided her by the arm. She wasn't resisting outright, but her hesitation was clear, a silent plea lost in the night. Outside, the festival's noise faded, and Pucón's streets grew quiet. Predinas took her to a nearby cabin, a secluded rental he'd arranged. What happened in those hours remains a wound on Chile's conscience. Antonia, too drunk to consent, was sexually assaulted by Predinas. He exploited her vulnerability, ignoring her confusion, her inability to fight back. When it was over, he left her there, alone and shattered as if she were nothing. Antonia woke the next morning, her mind foggy, her body aching. Fragments of the night came back in sickening flashes. Prayed Nas's hands, her own voice pleading, the weight of his disregard. She stumbled back to her friends, her face pale, her usual spark gone. Consuelo and Jose were alarmed, pressing her for answers. In a trembling voice, she confided the truth. It wasn't consensual. "I didn't want it," she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. They urged her to go to the police, but Antonia hesitated. In Chile, sexual assault victims often faced skepticism, even blame. The thought of public scrutiny, of her family's pain, paralyzed her. "Who will believe me?" she asked, her voice breaking. She decided to stay silent, hoping to bury the trauma and move on. But trauma doesn't stay buried, it festers. In the weeks that followed, Antonia's world unraveled. She withdrew from friends, her grades slipped, and nightmares haunted her sleep. She'd see Pridenas's face in crowds, her heart racing at the thought of him. Her family noticed the change. Her laughter replaced by silence, her eyes distant. Alejandro, her father, tried to reach her, but she deflected, unwilling to burden him. "I'm just stressed," she'd say, forcing a smile. But the weight was too much. On October 13th, 2017, less than a month after the assault, Antonia made a devastating choice. She took her own life, leaving behind a note that hinted at her pain but didn't name her attacker. Her family was shattered, their grief a tidal wave. Alejandro found her, his cries echoing through their home. Why didn't she tell me?" he sobbed, clutching her note. They thought it was depression, a hidden struggle. The truth was far darker. Antonia's death sent shockwaves through Pucón. Friends whispered about her final weeks, piecing together her confession to Consuelo and Jose. The assault came into focus, and with it a name, Martin Pradnes. Alejandro, consumed by grief and fury, vowed to uncover the truth. He spoke to Antonia's friends, learning of her fear, her shame, and the man who destroyed her. The police were initially reluctant, citing lack of evidence and Antonia's absence to testify. But Alejandro was relentless, his love for his daughter a fire that wouldn't dim. He shared her story publicly, his voice raw on local radio. "My daughter was taken from us. Someone did this to her." His words struck a chord, and Pucón began to listen. The investigation gained traction when Consuelo and Jose came forward, their testimonies corroborating Antonia's account. The surveillance footage from the Black Room Club was a breakthrough, showing Prudenas leading her away, her body language screaming discomfort. But Prudenas was no stranger to suspicion. As the case grew, other women stepped into the light, their stories eerily similar. 5 others accused him of sexual assault, describing a pattern. Charming at first, predatory in private. One woman, Sofia, recounted a 2016 incident at a party where Prudenas assaulted her after she'd passed out from drinking. Another, Camila, spoke of a 2014 attack her cries ignored. The revelations painted Prudenas as a serial offender, his charm a weapon, his privilege a shield. Prudenas was arrested in July 2020, his face plastered across Chilean news. He denied everything, claiming all encounters were consensual. "She wanted it," he said of Antonia, his smirk infuriating the public. The case became a lightning rod, exposing Chile's systemic failures in addressing sexual violence. Victims were often dismissed, their stories scrutinized, while perpetrators walked free. Antonia's family, backed by feminist groups, took to the streets, their chants echoing, "Ni una menos," not one less. The protests spread from Pucón to Santiago, women holding signs with Antonia's face, demanding justice. Social media amplified their cry. The hashtag Justicia para Antonia, trending nationwide. The trial began in 2021, a grueling battle in Temuco's courthouse. Prudenas, dressed in a crisp suit, sat calmly, his confidence unnerving. The prosecution leaned on the testimonies of Antonia's friends and the other victims, their voices trembling but resolute. The surveillance footage played in court, a silent indictment of Prudenas' intent. Forensic experts testified about Antonia's mental state, linking her suicide to the trauma of the assault. "She was destroyed," a psychologist said, her words heavy. Alejandro took the stand, his voice breaking as he described his daughter's light, now extinguished. "He didn't just take her body," he said. "He took her soul." The defense fought back, painting Antonia as unstable, her suicide unrelated to Pradenas. They questioned the other victims' credibility, suggesting they sought attention. It was a tactic that enraged the gallery, where Antonia's mother, Marcella, sat clutching a photo of her daughter. The trial stretched over months, each day a test of endurance for the family. In July 2022, the verdict came. Pradenas was guilty of 7 sexual crimes against 6 women, including Antonia. The courtroom erupted in cheers and tears as he was sentenced to 20 years. Alejandro embraced Marcela, the relief palpable. "This is for you, Antonia," he whispered. But the fight wasn't over. In 2023, an appeals court ordered a retrial, citing procedural errors. The decision sparked outrage, with protests flaring across Chile. The retrial, held later that year, reaffirmed Pradenas' guilt, but reduced his sentence to 17 years. A bittersweet outcome. "It's not enough," Alejandro said outside the courthouse, his voice weary, "but it's something." Pradenas remains in prison, his appeals ongoing, his name a symbol of predation. For Antonia's family, the victory was hollow without her. The Antonia Berra case transformed Chile. It fueled the feminist movement, pushing for legal reforms to protect victims and punish offenders. New laws stiffened penalties for sexual assault and mandated better support for survivors. Pucón, once a haven of carefree nights, now carries a somber weight. Its festivals tinged with caution. Antonia's face adorns murals, her story taught in schools as a call to action. Her family established a foundation in her name, offering counseling to assault survivors. "She's still with us," Marcelo says, touching a locket with Antonia's photo. "She's saving others now." What drove Pradenas to prey on Antonia and others? Was it power, entitlement, or a sickness that thrived in silence? His pattern suggests a man who saw women as objects, their consent irrelevant. Chile's culture, long steeped in machismo, gave him cover until Antonia's story broke through. Her courage in confiding to friends, even in her darkest hour, sparked a reckoning. But the cost was unbearable. How many others suffer in silence? Their stories untold. How many predators still walk free? As the rain whispers outside, Antonia's memory lingers, a beacon in the dark. Her laughter is gone, but her legacy burns bright in the laws she inspired, the voices she lifted, and the justice she won. Pucón's lakes still shimmer, but they reflect a town forever changed. This is the story of Antonia Barra, a young woman who fell but rose to change a nation. As we leave Chile behind, another shadow waits, a tale of betrayal and murder in New Hampshire. But that's for another night. Part 4, the Lizzie Marriott case. In the crisp autumn of 2012, the coastal town of Dover, New Hampshire, hummed with the quiet charm of a New England fall. Leaves painted the streets in shades of amber and crimson, and the University of New Hampshire buzzed with students chasing dreams. Among them was Lizzie Marriott, a 19-year-old marine biology major whose infectious smile and boundless curiosity lit up every room. Lizzie was the kind of person who made the world feel brighter, devoted to her studies, loyal to her friends, and anchored by a loving family. But on October 9, 2012, her light vanished, swallowed by a darkness that would unravel a chilling tale of deception, coercion, and murder. This is the story of Lizzie Marriott, a tragedy that shattered a community and left a question that still haunts. How far can evil hide behind an ordinary fate? As the rain falls softly outside, settle into the shadows and let this harrowing truth unfold. Lizzie Marriott was a star in the making. Raised in Westboro, Massachusetts, she grew up surrounded by love. Her parents, Bob and Melissa, and her younger sister nurtured her adventurous spirit. Lizzie loved the ocean, her passion for marine life driving her to UNH, where she thrived in her classes and volunteered at the university's aquarium. Her friends describe her as warm and trusting, always ready with a laugh or a kind word. She saw the good in everyone, her best friend Rachel later said, her voice heavy with grief. That trust, so pure, would become her undoing. On that October evening, Lizzie told Rachel she was heading to Dover to visit a friend, Kate McDonough, a 20-year-old theater student she'd met through a campus group. Kate was outgoing with a flair for drama both on stage and off, and Lizzie enjoyed her company. The plan was simple: hang out at Kate's apartment, maybe watch a movie, and catch up. Lizzie texted her boyfriend Seth to say she'd be home by midnight. "Love you," she wrote, her last message to him. She drove to Kate's place, a small apartment shared with Kate's boyfriend Seth Mazzaglia, a 30-year-old martial arts enthusiast and aspiring actor. Lizzie had met Mazzaglia a few times, his intense demeanor offset by Kate's warmth. She had no reason to suspect danger, but inside that apartment, a nightmare was waiting. Mazzaglia was a man of contradictions. To some, he was charismatic with dark eyes and a commanding presence. He led a local theater troupe and taught martial arts, projecting confidence, but beneath the surface lurked a troubled mind. Friends described him as controlling, obsessed with dominance and dark fantasies. He'd been expelled from a martial arts school for erratic behavior, and his relationships were marked by manipulation. Kate, younger and impressionable, was under his spell, their bond steeped in a toxic mix of devotion and fear. Mazzaglia dictated her actions, from her clothing to her friendships, and introduced her to a world of sexual experimentation that pushed boundaries. Lizzie, unaware of this dynamic, stepped into their orbit, a lamb among wolves. What happened that night remains a puzzle pieced together from conflicting accounts, but the outcome is undeniable. Lizzie never left that apartment alive. According to Mazzaglia, the evening began casually. Cards, conversation, a few drinks. He claimed Lizzie, Kate, and he engaged in a consensual threesome involving rope bondage, a practice he and Kate explored. In his version, Lizzie accidentally died during the encounter, a tragic mishap when a rope tightened around her neck. But the evidence told a darker story, one of premeditation and violence. Prosecutors argued Mazzaglia targeted Lizzie, his attraction to her twisted into obsession. When she rejected his advances, his ego couldn't handle it. The accident was a lie, they said, a cover for murder. The apartment was a crime scene, frozen in time. Police later found traces of Lizzie's blood on the carpet, smeared as if someone tried to clean it. Rope fibers matched marks on her neck, but the bruising suggested strangulation, not an accident. Her DNA was on a pair of gloves hidden in a closet, and her hair clung to a bloody shirt stuffed in a trash bag. Mazzaglia's story unraveled further when Kate, under pressure, confessed her role. She admitted Lizzie had been uncomfortable, resisting Mazzaglia's suggestions. When things escalated, Kate said she was too scared to intervene. After Lizzie's death, Mazzaglia coerced her into helping dispose of the body. He said we'd both go down if I talked, Kate later testified, her voice trembling. The disposal was as calculated as it was cruel. Mazzaglia and Kate wrapped Lizzie's body in a tarp, drove to the Piscataqua River, and dumped her into the icy waters off Purse Island. Her phone, clothes, and ID were scattered across dumpsters in Dover and Portsmouth, an attempt to erase her existence. Lizzie's body was never recovered, a final cruelty that denied her family closure. The river, cold and unyielding, kept its secret, leaving only the evidence in the apartment to speak for her. Lizzie's absence was felt immediately. When she didn't return home, Seth alerted her parents, who called the police. Her car, found parked near Kate's apartment, was the first clue something was wrong. Her phone was off, her social media silent. Bob and Melissa Marriott, frantic, drove to Dover, plastering flyers with Lizzie's smiling face across town. The community rallied, students and locals joining search parties, their hope fading with each passing day. She wouldn't just disappear, Bob told a reporter, his voice cracking. Someone knows something. The police, sensing foul play, zeroed in on Kate's apartment, where a nervous Kate and a composed Mazzaglia awaited. The investigation moved swiftly. Kate, unraveling under questioning, broke first. Her plea deal, 3 years for obstruction and perjury, came in exchange for her testimony. She described Mazzaglia's control, how he'd manipulated her into silence. I was terrified of him, she said, her eyes downcast. Mazzaglia's arrest followed, his calm demeanor cracking as the evidence mounted. A search of his laptop revealed searches for how to dispose of a body and strangulation techniques dated days before Lizzie's visit. A former girlfriend, Catherine Fish, provided a chilling perspective. She testified about Mazzaglia's violent fantasies, his obsession with control, and how he'd once choked her during an argument. He liked the power, she said, her voice steady despite the memories. The trial, held in 2014, gripped New Hampshire. The Dover courthouse was packed, reporters spilling into the halls. Mazzaglia, now 32, sat stone-faced, his theatrical flair replaced by a cold detachment. The prosecution's case was meticulous. The blood, the DNA, the rope marks, Kate's testimony, and Fish's revelations painted a portrait of a predator. The surveillance footage from a nearby gas station showed Mazzaglia and Kate buying cleaning supplies hours after Lizzie's disappearance, their faces grim. The defense clung to the accident narrative, portraying Lizzie as a willing participant in a risky game. Tragic, but not murder, Mazzaglia's lawyer argued, his words met with murmurs of disbelief from the gallery. Bob and Melissa Marriott sat through every session, their hands clasped, their grief palpable. When Kate took the stand, Melissa's eyes never left her, searching for remorse. Kate's testimony was a gut punch. She described Lizzie's fear, her pleas, and Mazzaglia's rage when she refused him. "I should have stopped it," Kate whispered, tears streaming. The prosecution played a recorded call between Mazzaglia and Kate, made while he was in jail, where he urged her to stick to the story. His voice, chillingly calm, betrayed no guilt. The jury, 8 women and 4 men, deliberated for 2 days. On July 17th, 2014, they delivered their verdict. Guilty of first-degree murder. Mazzaglia was sentenced to life without parole, his fate sealed as the courtroom erupted in quiet sobs. Kate's road divided the public. Her plea deal, seen as lenient by some, sparked debate. Released in 2016, she vanished from public view, her life forever marked by that night. The Marriott family, while relieved by the verdict, faced an unbearable void. "We'll never hold her again," Bob said outside the courthouse, his voice breaking. They created a memorial bench by the ocean, inscribed with Lizzie's name and a quote, "Her love for the sea lives on." It became a place of pilgrimage for friends and strangers, a reminder of a life cut short. The Lizzie Marriott case left Dover reeling. The university tightened campus safety measures and students spoke openly about trust and predatory behavior. Lizzie's story became a cautionary tale taught in self-defense classes and dorm workshops. Her passion for marine biology inspired a scholarship in her name, funding students who shared her love for the ocean. But the pain lingered. Bob and Melissa moved away, unable to bear the town where Lizzie disappeared. "Every corner reminds us of her," Melissa said, her voice soft. The Piscataqua River, where Lizzie's body lies, flows on, its secrets locked in its depths. What drove Seth Mazzaglia to kill? Was it rejection, a need to dominate, or a fantasy that spiraled into reality? His history suggests a man intoxicated by control, his charm a mask for something sinister. Kate's complicity, born of fear, raises its own questions. How far does coercion excuse betrayal? The case exposed the fragility of trust. How a single night can unravel a life. Lizzie's kindness, her belief in others, was her strength and her vulnerability. How many others fall prey to those who hide their darkness behind a smile? As the rain whispers outside, Lizzie's memory drifts like a tide, pulling at the heart. Her laughter is gone, but her legacy lives in the scholarships, the bench, and the lessons her loss taught a community. This is the story of Lizzie Marriott, a young woman whose light was stolen, but whose impact endures. So as we leave New Hampshire's shores, another shadow waits. A tale of torture and betrayal in Hollywood. But that's for another night. Part 5, the Blake Libel case. In the sun-soaked sprawl of Los Angeles, where dreams are chased and fortunes are made, Hollywood's glitz often hides a darker underbelly. It's a place where ambition can twist into obsession, and love can curdle into something monstrous. In May 2016, this city of stars became the stage for a crime so gruesome it seemed ripped from a horror script. Ayana Kassian, a 30-year-old Ukrainian model and lawyer, was a woman of beauty and brilliance. Her life, full of promise. She'd come to America seeking opportunity, only to find herself entangled with Blake Libel, a 35-year-old aspiring comic book writer with a privileged past and a chilling secret. What unfolded in their West Hollywood apartment would shock even the most jaded detectives. This is the story of Ayana Kassian and Blake Libel, a tale of betrayal, brutality, and a descent into madness that left a city reeling. As the rain falls softly outside, settle into the shadows, and let this horrifying truth unravel. Ayana Kassian was a force of nature. Born in Kiev, Ukraine, she grew up in a close, knit family, her intelligence matched only by her determination. After earning a law degree, she pivoted to modeling, her striking features, piercing green eyes, her landing her gigs across Europe. In 2014, she moved to Los Angeles, chasing the American dream. Ayanna was no starry-eyed ingenue. She was grounded, ambitious, and fiercely independent. She worked as a translator while building her modeling career, her warm smile and quick wit endearing her to friends. She was going places, her friend Natalia said, her voice tinged with sorrow. She had this light you couldn't ignore. That light drew many admirers, but none would change her life like Blake Leibel. Leibel was a product of privilege, the son of a wealthy Canadian real estate tycoon. Raised in Toronto, he grew up with every advantage: private schools, luxury cars, and a safety net most could only dream of. But Blake was restless, drawn to Hollywood's allure. He dabbled in film production and graphic novels, his projects often dark and violent. His comic book, Syndrome, depicted a scientist experimenting on human subjects, its imagery disturbingly prophetic. To outsiders, Blake was charming with boyish good looks and a knack for storytelling, but those close to him saw cracks, mood swings, a need for control, and a temper that flared when challenged. His first marriage had ended in divorce, his ex-wife citing his erratic behavior. In Los Angeles, Blake reinvented himself, but the darkness followed. Ayanna met Blake at a Hollywood party in 2015. Their connection, instant. He was smitten, showering her with attention. Lavish dinners, weekend getaways, promises of a future together. Ayanna, cautious but hopeful, fell for his charm. He made her feel special, Natalia recalled. But it was too perfect, too fast. By early 2016, Ayanna was pregnant, and the couple moved into a sleek West Hollywood apartment on North Sweetser Avenue, a stone's throw from the Sunset Strip. Their daughter Diana was born in April, a tiny bundle who brought Ayanna joy even as her relationship with Blake began to fray. Friends noticed tension. Blake's jealousy, his insistence on controlling Ayanna's schedule. He didn't like her working, Natalia said. He wanted her all to himself. The cracks widened after Diana's birth. Ayanna, devoted to her newborn, juggled motherhood with her career, her resilience tested by Blake's growing volatility. He'd snap over small things, her phone buzzing, her plans with friends, his voice sharp with accusation. Ayanna confided in her mother, Olga, back in Ukraine about his mood swings. "He's not the man I thought," she admitted in a late-night call, her voice heavy. Hello urged her to leave, but Ayanna hesitated, torn between her love for Diana and her fear of Blake's reaction. She didn't know how far he'd go to keep her. May 2016 was warm and restless in Los Angeles. On May 23, Ayanna visited her mother, who'd flown from Ukraine to meet Diana. The visit was a brief escape, Ayanna laughing as she cradled her daughter, her worries momentarily forgotten. But when she returned to the apartment that evening, something shifted. Blake was agitated, his eyes dark with an emotion she couldn't place. They argued about what no one knows, but it wasn't the first time. Ayanna, exhausted, stayed the night hoping to diffuse the tension. It was a decision that sealed her fate. The next day, Olga grew uneasy. Ayanna wasn't answering her phone, her texts unanswered, a stark contrast to her usual responsiveness. By May 25, panic set in. Olga called the police, her broken English conveying urgency. "My daughter is missing. Please check on her." Officers arrived at the Sweetser Avenue apartment, knocking to no response. They left, citing no probable cause to enter. Olga, desperate, contacted Ayanna's friends, who urged another welfare check. On May 26, police returned, this time with a key from the landlord. What they found inside would haunt them for years. The apartment was a scene of unimaginable horror. In the bedroom, Ayanna's body lay on the bed, unrecognizable. Her scalp had been removed, her face mutilated, her body drained of blood. The walls were spattered with crimson, the air thick with the metallic scent of death. Her injuries were meticulous, almost surgical. Her skull exposed, her right ear severed, her jaw broken. The coroner later estimated she'd been tortured for hours, her body desecrated, even after death. Blake was there, barricaded in the bathroom, naked and incoherent. He mumbled about cleaning up, his hands stained red. Officers arrested him on the spot, their faces pale as they processed the carnage. The crime scene told a story of calculated brutality. Blood trails suggested Ayanna had been moved. Her body posed on the bed like a grotesque tableau. Tools, a scalpel, a razor, a hammer were found nearby, each bearing traces of her DNA. The bathtub was filled with bloody water, evidence of an attempt to wash away the crime. Blake's fingerprints were everywhere, his DNA under Ayanna's nails, a sign she'd fought for her life. A copy of Syndrome, his comic book, lay on the nightstand, its violent imagery mirroring the scene. Detectives were stunned by the precision, the lack of remorse. It was like he was writing his own story, one said, his voice low. The investigation moved swiftly, driven by the case's sheer brutality. Blake's past came under scrutiny. His failed projects, his financial dependence on his family, his history of controlling behavior. Friends revealed his fascination with gore, how he'd talk about pushing limits in art and life. His brother Cody, a real estate developer, was questioned but uninvolved, shocked by the allegations. Ayana's mother, Olga, flew to Los Angeles, her grief a tidal wave. She identified Ayana's body, collapsing at the sight. "My angel," she sobbed, clutching a photo of her daughter smiling with Diana. The police learned Ayana had planned to leave Blake. Her bags packed in the apartment, a detail that pointed to motive. He couldn't let her go. Blake's arrest made headlines, the Hollywood scalping murder, a tabloid sensation. Los Angeles, no stranger to scandal, was shaken by the crime's savagery. Ayana's modeling photos, radiant and full of life, contrasted with the grim details, fueling public outrage. The Label family, prominent in Canada, distanced themselves, issuing a statement of condolence but avoiding the press. Blake, held without bail, remained silent, his once charming facade replaced by a vacant stare. Prosecutors charged him with first-degree murder, aggravated mayhem, and torture, seeking the death penalty. The case, they said, was evil in its purest form. The trial began in June 2018. The Los Angeles County Superior Court packed with reporters and mourners. Blake, now 37, sat impassively, his tailored suit at odds with the monster described in testimony. The prosecution's case was airtight. Forensic evidence, DNA matches, and the tools linked Blake to every act. The coroner's report was harrowing. Over 100 distinct wounds, many inflicted while Ayana was alive. She suffered unimaginable pain, the coroner said, her voice steady despite the horror. Photos of the crime scene, shown to a hushed courtroom, drew gasps, jurors averting their eyes. Olga took the stand, her testimony a heart-wrenching plea. "He took my daughter, my granddaughter's mother. Why?" The defense argued Blake suffered a psychotic break, his obsession with violent imagery spilling into reality. They pointed to his clean criminal record, his privileged upbringing, as evidence he wasn't inherently violent. This was an aberration, his lawyer said. But the claim rang hollow against the evidence. Witnesses painted a different picture. A man consumed by control, his jealousy ignited by Ayana's independence. A former girlfriend testified about his temper, how he'd grab her wrists, his eyes like a storm. The prosecution played a chilling 911 call from Olga, her voice frantic as she begged for help. The jury, 7 women and 5 men, listened in silence. Their faces grew. The trial's turning point was the testimony of a forensic psychologist who linked Blake's comic book to the crime. Syndrome wasn't fiction for him, she said. It was a blueprint. Pages from the book projected in court showed scenes of mutilation, eerily similar to Ayana's injuries. The defense objected, but the damage was done. Closing arguments were stark. The prosecution called Blake a monster who scripted his own horror, while the defense pleaded for mercy, citing mental illness. After 4 days of deliberation, the verdict came on June 26, 2018, guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted in quiet sobs as Blake was sentenced to life without parole, the death penalty spared due to a split jury. Olga clutched a locket with Ayana's photo, her relief tempered by grief. The aftermath was profound. Ayana's daughter, Diana, was raised by Olga in Ukraine, a bittersweet reminder of her mother's love. The Libel family faced lawsuits, Ayana's estate seeking damages for Diana's future. Los Angeles grappled with its image, the case exposing the city's undercurrent of privilege and predation. Ayana's friends created a memorial fund supporting immigrant women pursuing education. She'd want others to have the chance she lost, Natalia said, her voice firm. The apartment on Sweetser Avenue was sold, its new owners unaware of its ghosts. Blake, incarcerated in a maximum security prison, remains isolated, his appeals ongoing but unlikely to succeed. What drove Blake Libel to such depravity? Was it jealousy, a need to possess Ayana, or a mind warped by his own creations? His comic book suggests a fascination with violence, but the precision of the crime points to something colder, more deliberate. Ayana's independence, her plans to leave, threatened his control, and he responded with unimaginable cruelty. The case raises questions about privilege, how wealth and status can shield warning signs, how a man like Blake could hide in plain sight. Ayana's trust, her belief in love, was her vulnerability, exploited by a man who saw her as a canvas for his darkness. As the rain whispers outside, Ayana's memory lingers, a star dimmed too soon. Her laughter is gone, but her legacy lives in Diana, in the fund bearing her name, and in the conversations her death sparked about domestic violence. This is the story of Ayana Cassian, a woman whose dreams were stolen, but whose story refuses to fade. As we leave Hollywood's shadows, another tragedy waits, a tale of coercion and murder in Ireland. But that's for another night. Part 6, the Siobhan McLaughlin case. In the quiet seaside town of Greystones, Ireland, where the waves whisper against the shore and the streets hum with the warmth of community, life unfolds at a gentle pace. But beneath this serene surface, secrets can fester and trust can turn deadly. Siobhan McLaughlin, a 41-year-old mother and hotel worker, was the heart of her family, her laughter a beacon in the lives of those who knew her. In February 2006, her home became a stage for a crime so calculated it shattered the town's sense of safety. Her husband, Brian Kearney, a man cloaked in respectability, hid a darkness that would unravel in a web of lies, coercion, and murder. This is the story of Siobhan McLaughlin, a tale of betrayal, control, and a family's relentless pursuit of justice. As the rain falls softly outside, settle into the shadows and let this chilling truth unfold. Siobhan was a woman of strength and warmth. Born in Dublin, she grew up in a close-knit family, her spirit as vibrant as her auburn hair. She met Brian Kearney in the 1980s, a charming entrepreneur with big dreams. They married in 1990, building a life together in Greystones, a picturesque town south of Dublin. Their son Daniel, born in 2001, was Siobhan's pride and joy. She worked at the Goat Hotel, her knack for hospitality earning her the affection of colleagues and guests. Siobhan was a planner, her diary filled with dreams of travel and a better future for Daniel. But her marriage, once a partnership, had begun to crack. Brian's charm had faded, replaced by a controlling streak that dimmed Siobhan's light. Brian Kearney was a man of ambition but not success. His property ventures, once promising, were crumbling under debt by 2006. He owned a hotel and apartments, but cash flow was tight, and his temper flared as his empire waned. Siobhan, aware of their financial strain, suggested selling assets, but Brian refused, his pride wounded. At home, he dictated her movements, where she went, who she saw. His jealousy flaring if she spoke to other men. Siobhan's diary, later found hidden in an airing cupboard, revealed his coercive control. He watches me, always questions me. I feel trapped. She confided in her sister Ashlyn about her plan to leave. Her passport and €500, 0 cents, tucked away for a fresh start. I want Daniel to have a happy home, she said, her voice resolute. She didn't know Brian was watching her every move. February 27, 2006 was a chilly night in Greystones. Siobhan and Brian went to bed separately, as was their custom, with Daniel asleep in his room. Brian later claimed they'd had a quiet evening, no arguments, no tension. But the next morning, February 28th, the story he told would collapse under scrutiny. He said they ate breakfast together, he played a DVD for Daniel, and tried to enter Siobhan's locked bedroom before leaving for work. Unable to get in, he claimed he left at 8:30 a.m. assuming she was sleeping. It was a lie that unraveled the moment police entered the house. Aisling, worried when Siobhan didn't answer her calls, went to the house that afternoon. The front door was unlocked, an odd detail for Siobhan's cautious nature. Inside, the air felt wrong, too still, too heavy. Aisling called out, her voice echoing unanswered. In Siobhan's bedroom, she found her sister, her body suspended from a wardrobe door, a vacuum cleaner cord around her neck. Aisling screamed, collapsing as she dialed emergency services. Paramedics arrived, their faces grim as they confirmed Siobhan was gone. The scene looked like a suicide, but something was off. The cord was frayed, barely able to hold her weight, and the room showed signs of a struggle. Furniture askew, a lamp overturned. Aisling, through her tears, insisted. She'd never leave Daniel. Never. The Gardaí, Ireland's police, descended on the house, their instincts screaming foul play. The forensic teams found no note, no signs of depression in Siobhan's life. A pathologist's report was damning. Siobhan's neck bore marks of strangulation, her chin bruised, her larynx fractured in 3 places. Injuries inconsistent with suicide. The cord was a prop, staged to mislead. There was no forced entry. The alarm system activated at 10:50 p.m. the previous night and briefly deactivated at 7:37 a.m., suggesting the killer was inside. Brian, the last person to see her, became the prime suspect. His calm demeanor during questioning raised red flags. "She was fine when I left," he said, his voice flat, his eyes avoiding the detective's gaze. The investigation peeled back layers of Brian's facade. Financial records showed he was drowning in debt, his properties leveraged to the hilt. A divorce which Siobhan was planning would have crippled him, forcing a division of assets he couldn't afford. Siobhan's diary was a bombshell, its pages detailing his control, how he'd track her phone, belittle her dreams, and threaten her if she spoke of leaving. He says, "I'll regret it," she wrote, her handwriting shaky. Her hidden passport and cash confirmed her intent to escape, a motive for Brian to act. Colleagues at the Goat Hotel described his frequent visits, how he'd watch Siobhan work, his presence unsettling. "She was scared of him," a coworker said, her voice low. "We all saw it." Brian's story crumbled under forensic evidence. Fibers from his clothing were found on the vacuum cord, and his DNA was under Siobhan's nails, a sign she'd fought back. Blood traces in the bedroom, cleaned but not erased, matched her type. The alarm system's log was a nail in his coffin. Its brief deactivation at 7:37 a.m. aligned with his claim of leaving, but no one else could have entered without triggering it. He'd staged the scene, underestimating the Gardaí scrutiny. A neighbor reported seeing his car at the house later than he claimed, and CCTV from a nearby shop caught him buying cleaning supplies the day before. Piece by piece, the lie unraveled. Brian was arrested on March 2, 2006, his composure cracking as handcuffs snapped shut. Greystones buzzed with shock, neighbors whispering in disbelief. Siobhan was beloved, her death a wound to the town's heart. Her family, led by Aisling, rallied, their grief fueling a demand for justice. "She was our rock," Aisling told reporters, her voice breaking. "He took her from us." The Gardaí built a meticulous case, their evidence overwhelming. Forensics, Siobhan's diary, financial records, and witness accounts. Brian's silence in custody spoke volumes, his refusal to explain the evidence a tacit admission. The trial began in January 2008 at the Central Criminal Court in Dublin, a media frenzy engulfing the city. Brian, now 45, sat stone-faced, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the monster described in testimony. The prosecution's case was relentless. Siobhan's injuries, the staged scene, and Brian's motive, financial ruin and loss of control. And, you ask me, well, Brian, the pathologist's testimony was chilling, detailing the force needed to fracture Siobhan's larynx. "This was no accident," he said, his voice steady. Aisling took the stand, reading from Siobhan's diary, her words trembling. "I want to be free." The courtroom fell silent, jurors wiping tears. The defense argued the evidence was circumstantial, no direct witness to the act. They suggested Siobhan's injuries could have occurred in a struggle, not murder, and questioned her mental state. "She was under stress," Brian's lawyer said, a claim debunked by her family and friends. Siobhan's plans, her savings, her dreams for Daniel showed a woman looking forward, not giving up. The prosecution countered with the alarm log, the DNA, and Brian's lies. Each point a hammer blow. A judicial misstep added drama. Justice Barry White mistakenly called Siobhan Rachel, confusing her with another victim, Rachel O'Reilly. The error, quickly corrected, fueled headlines but didn't sway the case. After 6 weeks, the jury deliberated for 3 days. On March 5th, 2008, they returned guilty of murder, 11-1. Brian showed no emotion, his eyes fixed on the floor as the life sentence was read. Aisling embraced her parents, their relief palpable, but their pain unhealed. "Justice for Siobhan," she whispered, clutching a photo of her sister. Outside, Greystones mourned, flowers piling up at the McLaughlin home. The trial exposed coercive control, a term new to many, sparking debates about domestic abuse in Ireland. Brian's appeals in 2009 and 2012 were dismissed, the evidence too strong. In 2019, parole was denied. He refused to admit guilt, a requirement for release. He works as a counselor and first aider in prison, a role that infuriates Siobhan's family. He's no healer, Aisling said, her voice sharp. Daniel, just 5 at the time of the murder, was raised by Siobhan's parents. His mother's memory kept alive through stories and photo. The family's bid to formally adopt him remains unresolved, a lingering wound. Greystones has healed, but Siobhan's absence is felt. Her smile missing from the hotel, her laughter gone from the shore. What drove Brian Kearney to kill? Was it fear of losing his empire, his wife, his control? His meticulous staging suggests a man who believed he could outsmart justice, his ego blinding him to the truth. Siobhan's strength, her resolve to leave, threatened his world, and he responded with a coward's rage. The case exposed the hidden epidemic of coercive control, how it festers behind closed doors, its victims silenced until it's too late. Siobhan's trust in her marriage, her hope for better days, was her vulnerability, exploited by a man she once loved. As the rain whispers outside, Siobhan's memory drifts like the tide, a reminder of love lost, injustice won. Her laughter is gone, but her legacy lives in Daniel. In the laws her case strengthened, and in the awareness it sparked. This is the story of Siobhan McLaughlin, a woman whose light was stolen, but whose fight endures. As we leave Ireland's shores, another shadow waits. A tale of disappearance and betrayal in England. But that's for another night. Part 7, the Lindsay Wilson case. In the gritty coastal town of Southport, England, where the Irish Sea meets weathered piers and the streets pulse with working-class resilience, life carries a raw, unpolished rhythm in the late 1990s. This was home to Lindsay Wilson, a 22-year-old mother of 2 whose warmth and determination shone through the hardships she faced. Lindsay was a fighter, her love for her children, a beacon in a life marred by struggle. But in February 1999, her light was extinguished in a crime so callous it left Southport reeling. Her husband, Mitchell Quee, a man with a charming facade and a heart of ice, wove a web of lies that nearly buried the truth. This is the story of Lindsay Wilson, a tale of domestic torment, betrayal, and a family's unyielding quest for justice. As the rain falls softly outside, settle into the shadows and let this harrowing truth unfold. Lindsay was a woman forged in adversity. Born in 1976 to a tight-knit family, she grew up in Southport's modest terraces, her childhood marked by laughter and loyalty. She was bright, with a quick smile and a fierce spirit. But life dealt her a tough hand early. At 16, she met Mitchell Quee, a 21-year-old butcher with a boyish grin and a knack for turning heads. Mitchell was charming, his confidence magnetic, and Lindsay, young and hopeful, fell hard. They married in 1995, welcoming their daughter Amy that same year, followed by their son Ryan in 1997. Lindsay poured her heart into motherhood, her children, her world. But behind closed doors, Mitchell's charm was a mask, his love a cage. By 1998, their marriage was a battlefield. Mitchell's temper flared over nothing. A late dinner, a glance at another man, his words cutting like blades. He controlled Lindsay's every move, from her clothes to her friendships, isolating her from her family. Her sister, Lisa, noticed bruises on Lindsay's arms, her excuses flimsy. He's stressed, Lindsay would say, her voice hollow. She confided in Lisa about Mitchell's violence, how he'd shove her against walls, his hands tightening around her throat. "I'm scared for the kids," she admitted, tears falling. Lindsay wanted out, her resolve growing as she planned for divorce. She didn't know Mitchell was watching, his ego unable to fathom losing her. December 1998 was cold and tense in Southport. Lindsay was working part-time at a local shop, saving for a new start. On December 15, she met Lisa for coffee, her mood lighter than usual. "I'm leaving him," she said, her voice firm. "The kids deserve better." It was the last time Lisa saw her. That night, Lindsay and Mitchell argued, their voices carrying through the thin walls of their Birkdale home. Neighbors heard shouts, a crash, then silence. Mitchell later claimed Lindsay stormed out after a fight seeking a free lifestyle. "She just left," he told police, his eyes dry. But Lindsay's devotion to Amy and Ryan made his story ring false. She'd never abandoned her children. When Lindsay didn't call Lisa the next day, worry set in. Her phone was off, her shop shifts missed. Lisa contacted the police, her voice trembling. Something's wrong. She wouldn't leave her kids. Officers visited the Quay home, finding Mitchell calm, almost rehearsed. He repeated his story. Lindsay left after an argument, taking nothing but her purse. The house was tidy, too tidy, the air heavy with bleach. Amy, just 3, clung to Mitchell, her eyes wide. Ryan, barely 1, was in his crib, unaware of the void growing around him. The police, lacking evidence of a crime, left. But Lisa's gut screamed foul play. She rallied Lindsay's friends, plastering Southport with missing posters. Lindsay's smiling face a stark contrast to the fear gripping her family. Mitchell's behavior raised suspicions. He played the grieving husband, granting TV interviews with a practiced sorrow. "I just want her back," he said, his voice cracking on cue. But his arrogance betrayed him. In one interview, he smirked, saying, "She'll turn up, probably partying somewhere." Southport's residents, many who knew Lindsay's love for her children, weren't convinced. Social workers monitoring Amy and Ryan noted Mitchell's evasiveness, his answers vague when asked about Lindsay's habits. A tip from a neighbor that Mitchell had been seen burning clothes in his backyard prompted a deeper look. The police, now treating Lindsay's disappearance as suspicious, searched the house, finding traces of blood in the bathroom, clean but not erased. The investigation gained momentum in January 1999 when a dog walker found Lindsay's jacket near Southport's Pleasureland amusement park, its fabric stained with blood. Forensic tests confirmed it was hers, the blood a match. The discovery shifted the case from missing persons to homicide. Mitchell, the prime suspect. Under pressure, he stuck to his story, but cracks appeared. His brother Elliot, a butcher like Mitchell, was questioned after witnesses saw them together the night Lindsay vanished. Elliot, nervous and sweating, claimed ignorance, but his alibi was shaky. The police leaned harder, surveilling Mitchell, tapping his phone. A call to Elliot, intercepted in March, was chilling. "Keep your mouth shut, or we're both done." It was enough for a warrant. On April 10, 1999, Mitchell was arrested, his composure crumbling as he shouted, "You've got nothing." Elliot was detained days later, his silence breaking under interrogation. The brothers' stories unraveled, revealing a crime so brutal it stunned detectives. Mitchell confessed after 36 hours, his voice cold. "I killed her. She was leaving me." He described strangling Lindsay during their argument, his hands tightening as she clawed at him. "She wouldn't shut up about the divorce," he said, no trace of remorse. Elliot, fearing Mitchell's wrath, helped dismember her body in their garage, using butcher tools to carve her into pieces. They scattered her remains across Southport, some in dumpsters, some near the amusement park, some in the sea. A dog uncovered her torso in June 2000 near a roller coaster, the final piece of a grim puzzle. The crime scene was the Quay home, its ordinary facade hiding horror. Blood traces in the bathroom and garage, missed in Mitchell's cleanup, matched Lindsay. Bone fragments in the backyard fire pit confirmed the dismemberment. Mitchell's tools, a cleaver, a saw, bore her DNA, his fingerprints damning. Elliot's confession sealed their fates. "I didn't kill her, but I helped him hide it. I was scared." The police, sickened, pieced together the timeline. Lindsay died on December 15, her body disposed of over days. Mitchell caring for Amy and Ryan as if nothing happened. The callousness shook Southport, a town unaccustomed to such evil. Mitchell and Elliot were charged with murder and concealment, respectively, their arrests dominating headlines. Lindsay's family, led by Lisa, grieved publicly, their pain raw. "She was our sunshine," Lisa told reporters, clutching Amy's hand. "He stole her from us." Southport rallied, vigils lighting up the pier, Lindsay's face on every lamppost. The media dubbed Mitchell the Butcher of Birkdale. His TV interviews replayed as evidence of his deceit. His arrogance, once a shield, became his downfall, public outrage fueling the case. The trial began in November 2000 at Liverpool Crown Court, a circus of press and protesters. Mitchell, 25, sat with a smirk, his confidence infuriating. Elliot, 23, looked haunted, his head bowed. The prosecution's case was devastating. Forensic evidence, the torso, Mitchell's confession, and Elliot's testimony painted a vivid picture. A pathologist described Lindsay's injuries. Strangulation marks, defensive wounds, her fight for life palpable. "She didn't go quietly," he said, his voice heavy. Lisa took the stand, her testimony a gut punch. She was terrified of him, She just wanted her kids safe. Photos of Amy and Ryan smiling with Lindsay flashed on the screen, jurors wiping tears. The defense argued Mitchell acted in a moment of passion, provoked by Lindsay's divorce talk. They claimed Elliot was coerced, a reluctant accomplice. But Mitchell's confession, recorded and played in court, was chillingly detached. I did what I had to do. His media interviews, dripping with lies, were shown, his smirk a stark contrast to his claims of grief. Elliot's role, though lesser, drew scorn. His failure to stop Mitchell or report the crime unforgivable. The jury, 9 women and 3 men, deliberated for 2 days. On January 12, 2001, they returned. Mitchell guilty of murder, sentenced to life with a 17-year minimum. Elliot guilty of concealment, receiving 7 years. Lisa collapsed in relief, her parents embracing her. For Lindsay? She whispered. The aftermath scarred Southport. Lindsay's children, Amy and Ryan, were raised by her grandparents. Their mother's memory kept alive through stories and photos. Lisa fought for their stability, her grief compounded by her brother's suicide in 2002, a casualty of the family's pain. He couldn't live without her, she said, her voice soft. Mitchell, incarcerated, showed no remorse, his parole denied thrice by 2023 for lack of contrition. Elliot, released in 2006, vanished, his life tainted. Southport's Pleasure Lane, where Lindsay's torso was found, became a somber landmark, its rides a reminder of loss. The case exposed domestic violence's hidden toll, how abusers like Mitchell manipulate and destroy. Lindsay's courage, her plan to leave, threatened his control, and he responded with a butcher's precision. His media charade, a performance of grief, revealed a narcissist's arrogance, believing he could outsmart justice. Southport tightened support for abuse victims. Lindsay's name invoked in shelters and campaigns. Her family created a trust for Amy and Ryan, ensuring their education, a legacy of her love. She'd be proud, Lisa said, touching a locket with Lindsay's photo. What drove Mitchell Qua to such cruelty? Was it ego, fear of losing control, or a darkness that thrived on power? His confessions suggest a man who saw Lindsay as property, her independence a betrayal. Elliot's complicity, born of fear, raises questions of loyalty and cowardice. Lindsay's trust, her hope for a better life, was her vulnerability, exploited by a man she once loved. How many others endure in silence, their cries unheard until it's too late? As the rain whispers outside, Lindsay's memory lingers, a tide pulling at the heart. Her laughter is gone, but her legacy lives in Amy and Ryan, in the laws her case strengthened, and in the awareness it sparked. This is the story of Lindsay Wilson, a mother whose light was stolen, but whose love endures. As we leave Southport shores, another shadow waits depression. A tale of predation and loss in Denmark. But that's for another night. Part 8, the Mia Skadaj Stev case. In the vibrant city of Aalborg, Denmark, where historic streets blend with the pulse of modern life, the nights are alive with possibility. In February 2022, this Nordic haven was a backdrop for dreams, especially for Mia Skadhog Devin, a 22-year-old nursing student whose compassion and zest for life touched everyone she met. Mia was a spark, bright, ambitious, and fiercely devoted to her future. But on a cold winter night, her light was snuffed out in a crime so brutal it shook Denmark to its core. A predator, hiding in plain sight, turned a chance encounter into a nightmare, leaving a community grappling with grief and a nation demanding answers. This is the story of Mia Skadagi Steve, a tale of innocence betrayed, a relentless hunt for truth, and a legacy that refuses to fade. As the rain falls softly outside, settle into the shadows and let this chilling truth unfold. Mia was a soul who radiated warmth. Born in 1999 in a small Danish town, she grew up surrounded by love. Her parents, Lars and Hanna, and her older brother Jonas, her anchors. She was curious, her laughter infectious, her dreams big. Nursing was her calling. She enrolled at University College Nord in Aalborg, excelling in her studies. She wanted to help people, her friend Emma said, her voice soft with memory. That's who she was. Mia balanced school with a lively social life, her weekends filled with music, friends, and late-night adventures. She was cautious but trusting, her optimism a shield against the world's darker corners. That trust, so pure, would lead her into the path of a monster. On February 4th, 2022, Aalborg was buzzing with energy. Mia and her friends planned a night out, a break from exams. They hit the town, hopping between bars, the air thick with laughter and pop music. Mia, in a red jacket and jeans, danced with abandon, her smile lighting up the room. By 3 a.m., the group was at Cafe Basement, a popular spot packed with students. Mia, tipsy but happy, chatted with strangers, her openness part of her charm. Around 5 a.m., she told Emma she was heading home, her apartment a short walk away. "I'm good," she said, waving off concerns. CCTV captured her leaving at 5:45 a.m., her steps unsteady but purposeful. It was the last time her friends saw her alive. At 6:09 a.m., another camera caught a chilling moment, Mia entering a black Volkswagen Golf parked near the bar. The driver, a man, was barely visible in the grainy footage, his face obscured. She seemed hesitant, her body leaning back, but the door closed and the car sped off into the dawn. When Mia didn't text Emma the next day, worry crept in. Her phone was off, her social media silent. By February 6, her family reported her missing, their panic palpable. "She always checks in," Hannah told police, her voice trembling. The Aalborg police launched a search, their instincts screaming foul play. Mia's red jacket, found discarded near a park, was the first clue. Its fabric stained with mud and blood. The investigation exploded into one of Denmark's largest manhunts. Volunteers scoured Aalborg, posters of Mia's smiling face plastered across the city. The CCTV footage was a breakthrough. The Volkswagen Golf traced to Thomas Thompson, a 36-year-old electrician with a history of petty theft and drug use. Thompson lived on Aalborg's outskirts, a quiet loner who kept to himself. Police raided his apartment on February 8th, finding Mia's earrings and a bloodied knife hidden in a drawer. Thompson, gaunt and unshaven, claimed he'd found the items, his voice shaky. "I don't know her," he said, his eyes darting. But the evidence was damning. His GPS data placed him near Cafe Basement at 6 a.m., and fibers from Mia's jacket clung to his car's seats. The search for Mia intensified, helicopters buzzing over Aalborg's forests on February 10th. A grim discovery in Hammarby Forest stopped the city cold. Mia's remains, dismembered into 231 pieces, were scattered across a clearing. Her skull, bearing strangulation marks, was found under a tree. Her belongings, phone, wallet, keys, strewn nearby. The coroner's report was harrowing. Mia had been chased, raped, and strangled, her body mutilated with alkali to hasten decomposition. Bruises on her arms and legs showed she'd fought, her final moments a desperate struggle. Denmark recoiled, the brutality unthinkable in a nation known for safety. She was hunted, a detective said, his voice heavy, like prey. Thompson was arrested this same day, his apartment a treasure trove of evidence. Blood traces matched Mia's DNA, and his computer revealed searches for dismemberment and body disposal days before her disappearance. A journal found under his bed was chilling, cryptic entries about control and taking what's mine. Though Mia's name never appeared, neighbors described him as odd, his late-night drives raising suspicions. One recalled seeing him burn clothes in a backyard pit. The smell acrid. Thompson's past: petty theft, a dropped assault charge, painted a man spiraling into darkness, his isolation a breeding ground for obsession. The police pieced together a horrifying timeline. Thompson, at Cafe Basement that night, spotted Mia, her vibrancy a magnet. He offered her a ride, exploiting her intoxication. In his car, his intent became clear, and Mia's resistance sparked his rage. He drove to Hammarby Forest, where he raped and killed her, her screams lost in the trees. The dismemberment, methodical and precise, suggested planning, his electrician's tools, saws, knives used with chilling efficiency. He scattered her remains, believing the forest would hide his crime. But Mia's family, led by Lars, refused to let her fade. "We'll find her," he told reporters, his voice breaking. Their persistence and the public's outcry kept the pressure on. Thompson's interrogation was a battle of wills. He claimed Mia's death was accidental, a sex game gone wrong at his apartment. "She wanted it," he said, his smirk infuriating detectives. But the evidence, her defensive wounds, the forced isolation, disproved his story. His car's GPS showed a 4 a.m. trip to Hammarby hours before he claimed she died. Confronted with the journal, he fell silent. His lies collapsed. The police, led by Inspector Mate Jensen, were relentless, their case airtight. DNA, CCTV, forensics, in Thompson's own words, he thought he was smarter than us, Jensen said, her voice cold. He was wrong. The trial began in April 2023 at Aalborg District Court, a media storm engulfing Denmark. Thompson, now 37, sat with a vacant stare, his gaunt frame a shadow of the predator who'd stalked Mia. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. The 231 body parts, each cataloged, were presented in photos, jurors wincing at the horror. A forensic expert described the alkali's use, a deliberate attempt to erase her. Mia's earrings, found in Thompson's apartment, were shown, Hannah sobbing as she recognized them. Lars took the stand, his testimony a father's plea. She was our light. He stole her future. The courtroom, packed with Mia's friends, fell silent, their grief a tangible weight. The defense argued Thompson was mentally unwell, his actions impulsive, not premeditated. They claimed the journal was fiction, his searches unrelated, but the prosecution dismantled this, pointing to his calculated disposal, his lies to police. Emma's testimony was pivotal. Mia was happy that night. She'd never go with a stranger willingly. The CCTV, played in court, showed Mia's hesitation, her body language screaming unease. A psychologist testified about Thompson's profile: narcissistic, manipulative, with a high risk of reoffending. He felt entitled to her, she said, the words chilling. The trial stretched over weeks, each day a testament to Mia's life and the monster who ended it. On June 15, 2023, the verdict came: guilty of murder, attempted rape, and corpse desecration. The judge's voice was steady. Indefinite custody, a rare sentence reserved for Denmark's worst. Thompson's lack of remorse, his predatory nature, justified it, the court ruled. He showed no reaction, his eyes fixed on the floor. Outside, Mia's family embraced, their relief tempered by loss. It's justice, but it's not enough, Lars said, clutching Hannah. Thompson's appeal, filed in July 2023 and pending as of May 2024, seeks a lighter sentence, but experts doubt its success. He's where he belongs, Jensen said, her voice firm. The Mia Skadal-Stevon case transformed Aalborg. Protests erupted, women demanding safer streets, their signs bearing Mia's face. The Safe House program, launched in 2023, offered night escorts and panic buttons, a direct response to her death. Denmark tightened laws on sexual violence, Mia's name invoked in parliament. Her family created a scholarship in her name, funding nursing students. She'd want others to follow her dream, Hannah said, touching a locket with Mia's photo. Aalborg's bars, once carefree, now buzz with caution, Mia's story a warning etched in the city's heart. What drove Thompson to such depravity? Was it loneliness, a need for power, or a darkness that grew in isolation? His journal suggests a man obsessed with control, Mia's vibrancy a challenge to his emptiness. The dismemberment, so precise, points to a mind that planned, not panicked. Mia's trust, her belief in kindness, was her vulnerability, exploited by a predator who saw her as prey. The case exposed Denmark's blind spots, how even safe cities harbor danger, how predators blend into crowds. Like many others, walk home alone, unaware of the eyes watching. As the rain whispers outside, Mia's memory lingers, a star fallen too soon. Her laughter is gone, but her legacy lives in the scholarship, the laws, and the safety measures her death inspired. This is the story of Mia Skadal-Steve, a woman whose light was stolen, but whose impact endures. As we leave Aalborg streets, another shadow waits, a tale of greed and murder in Ireland. But that's for another night. Part 9, the Catherine Nevin case. In the rolling green hills of County Wicklow, Ireland, where the air carries the scent of wildflowers and the villages hum with old-world charm, life feels timeless. In the mid-1000s, 990th, Jack White's pub in Britis Bay was a cornerstone of this world, its warm lights and lively chatter, drawing locals and travelers alike. Tom Nevin, a 55-year-old publican, ran the pub with pride, his easy laugh and generous spirit making him a beloved figure. Beside him was his wife, Catherine Nevin, a woman whose beauty and charisma masked the calculating heart. In March 1996, their pub became the stage for a crime so cunning it captivated Ireland, exposing a web of greed, betrayal, and cold-blooded murder. This is the story of Tom Nevin and the woman who orchestrated his death, a tale of deception that left a nation stunned. As the rain falls softly outside, settle into the shadows and let this chilling truth unfold. Tom Nevin was the heart of Britta's Bay. Born in 1941 to a farming family, he'd built a life of hard work and community. Jack White's Pub, which he bought in the 1970s, was his legacy. A place where farmers swapped stories, tourists savored pints, and music filled the air. Tom was a man of simple joys. A pint with friends, a walk along the beach, a quiet evening with his dog. His marriage to Catherine, then 28 in 1986, raised eyebrows due to their 17-year age gap. But Tom was smitten. Catherine, with her sharp wit and striking looks, seemed a perfect partner, her energy complementing his steady warmth. Together they ran the pub, their partnership a fixture in Wicklow's social scene, but beneath the surface, their marriage was a house of cards, ready to collapse. Catherine was a woman of ambition, her charm a carefully honed weapon. Born in Dublin, she drifted through jobs before meeting Tom, her sights set on a life of wealth and status. The pub, while profitable, wasn't enough for her. She craved luxury. Designer clothes, exotic trips, a world beyond Britta's Bay. Tom, content with their life, didn't share her hunger and tensions grew. By the early 1990s, Catherine's warmth had turned to disdain, her laughter replaced by sharp remarks. Staff at the pub noticed her cruelty, berating Tom in front of customers, mocking his simple ways. She treated him like a servant, a barmaid later said, her voice tight. Catherine's affairs with men from guard-eye to local politicians were an open secret. Her infidelity, a blade in Tom's heart. Its marriage was unraveling, and Catherine had a plan. Between 1989 and 1991, she approached three men, William McLean, John Jones, and Jerry Heaps, with a proposition: kill Tom for a share of the pub's €1,945,000, 0 cents, in assets. Each refused, unnerved by her cold resolve. She talked about it like it was business, McLean later testified, his eyes wide. Catherine, undeterred, bided her time, her resentment festering. Tom, aware of her affairs, considered divorce but hesitated, his love for her a stubborn flame. He didn't know Catherine was plotting a final act, one that would leave him no chance to walk away. March 19, 1996 was a crisp spring night at Jack White's Pub. The evening was quiet, the last patrons leaving by 11 p.m. Tom and Catherine were alone, closing up, their routine as familiar as the creak of the pub's oak doors. According to Catherine, a masked intruder burst in around midnight, tying her up and demanding money. She claimed Tom fought back, only to be shot in the chest, his body crumpling in the bar. The intruder fled, she said, leaving her bound until she freed herself and called the guard-eye. When police arrived, they found Tom dead, a single bullet through his heart, and Catherine in hysterics, her wrists red from ropes. The scene was chaotic. Cash scattered, a window broken, but something felt staged, the details too convenient. The guard-eye, led by Inspector Sean Lynch, sensed the setup. There was no forced entry. The broken window shattered from the inside. The alarm system deactivated at 11:45 p.m. hadn't been triggered, suggesting the intruder was already in. Catherine's ropes were loosely tied, her story inconsistent. She claimed the intruder wore a balaclava, but described his eyes in detail. Tom's gunshot wound, clean and precise, suggested a shooter who knew him, not a panic robber. Obviously, cash, jewelry, were untouched, undermining the robbery motive. Lynch's team dug deeper, focusing on Catherine, her tears unconvincing. She was performing, a detective said, his voice low, like she'd rehearsed it. The investigation uncovered Catherine's double life. Staff at the pub described her abuse of Tom in public humiliations, private rages. Her affairs, confirmed by multiple witnesses, painted a woman desperate to escape her marriage. The three men she'd solicited, McLean, Jones, and Heaps, came forward, their testimonies a bombshell. She offered me €50,000, 0 cents to do it, Jones said, his voice shaking. Financial records showed the pub's value, a motive for Catherine to act before Tom could divorce her. Her Garda lover, a local inspector, was questioned but uninvolved, his career tarnished by the scandal. Catherine's lies began to crumble. her composure fraying as the guard eye closed in. Forensic evidence sealed her fate. Gunpowder residue was found on Catherine's hands, absent from the intruder's supposed path. The bullet, a .22 caliber, matched a rifle Tom kept in the pub, its case hidden in the storage room, Catherine's fingerprints on the trigger. Blood spatter on her clothes, clean but not erased, linked her to the shooting. A neighbor reported hearing no commotion, only a single shot around midnight, contradicting Catherine's tale of a struggle. Ropes, analyzed, showed no signs of resistance, their knots too neat. Piece by piece, the guard eye built a case, their diligence a testament to Tom's memory. "We knew it was her," Lynch said. "We just had to prove it." Catherine was arrested on April 10, 1996, her screams echoing as she was led from the pub. Britis Bay buzzed with shock, Tom's friends gathering at his grave, their grief raw. "He was one of us," a farmer said, his voice breaking. She betrayed him. The guard eye faced pressure to deliver the case in national obsession. Catherine's charm, once her strength, became her downfall, her arrogance blinding her to the evidence piling up. She maintained her innocence, her story unwavering even as the net tightened. The pub, once a place of joy, stood empty, its doors locked, its spirit gone. The trial began in February 2000 at the Central Criminal Court in Dublin, a spectacle that gripped Ireland. Catherine, now 42, sat with a defiant glare, her tailored dresses a stark contrast to the Black Widow moniker the press bestowed. The prosecution's case was meticulous. The rifle, the residue, the solicitations, and the financial motive painted a portrait of greed. A forensic expert described the bullet's trajectory, proving Tom was shot at close range, not in a struggle. Team stood over him, he said, his voice steady. McLean's testimony was pivotal, his account of Catherine's offer chilling the courtroom. "She said it'd be easy," he recalled, his eyes downcast. Tom's sister, Mary, took the stand, her voice trembling. "He loved her. She broke his heart." The defense argued the evidence was circumstantial, no eyewitness to the shot. They painted Catherine as a victim, trapped in a failing marriage, her affairs a cry for freedom. "She didn't pull the trigger," her lawyer said, suggesting an unknown accomplice. But the rifle's fingerprints, the staged scene, and her solicitations debunked this. The prosecution played a taped interview, Catherine's voice cold as she dismissed Tom's death. "He was old, it was his time." The jury, 8 men and 4 women, gasped, their faces grim. The trial, spanning 42 days, was Ireland's longest murder case at the time, each session peeling back Catherine's facade. On April 7, 2000, the verdict came after 5 days of deliberation, guilty of murder and 3 counts of solicitation. The courtroom erupted in cheers, Tom's family embracing, their tears a mix of relief and sorrow. Catherine showed no emotion, her eyes fixed on the judge as he sentenced her to life. "You betrayed a good man," he said, his voice heavy. Outside, Britis Bay mourned, flowers piling up at the pub. The trial, dubbed the Black Widow case, captivated Ireland. Catherine's image splashed across tabloids, her cunning a cautionary tale. Catherine's appeals in 2003, 2010, and 2014 failed, the evidence too strong. Diagnosed with a brain tumor in 2016, she was moved to hospice care, dying in February 2018, still proclaiming innocence. "I loved Tom," she told a nurse, her voice weak. Her death closed a chapter, but not the pain. Tom's family inherited the pub, selling it to escape its ghosts. They created a memorial fund in his name, supporting local charities. "He'd want to help," Mary said, touching a photo of Tom smiling behind the bar. Britis Bay rebuilt, but the pub's warmth was gone, its laughter silenced. The case exposed the anatomy of greed, how Catherine's hunger for wealth consumed her. Her solicitations, spanning years, showed a calculated mind. Her charm, a tool to manipulate. Tom's trust, his refusal to see her darkness, was his vulnerability, exploited by a woman he loved. Ireland tightened laws on domestic abuse. Catherine's control over Tom a stark example. Her affairs, her public persona, raised questions about privilege, how a woman like her could hide in plain sight, her beauty a shield. How many others plot behind smiles, their intentions masked? As the rain whispers outside, Tom's memory lingers, a pint raised in his honor. His laughter is gone, but his legacy lives in the fund, the community he built, and the justice he won. This is the story of Tom Nevin, a man whose heart was stolen, but whose spirit endures. As we leave Wicklow's hills, another shadow waits, a tale of loss and desperation in India. But that's for another night. Part 10, the Liga Scromain case. In the sun-drenched paradise of Kovalam, Kerala, India, where palm trees sway over golden beaches and the Arabian Sea hums with timeless rhythm, travelers come seeking peace. In March 2018, this coastal haven drew Liga Scromane, a 33-year-old Latvian woman whose gentle spirit and search for healing led her far from home. Liga was a wanderer, her heart open to the world, her mind wrestling with the shadows of depression. She arrived in Kerala hoping to find solace through Ayurvedic treatment, but instead she stepped into a nightmare that would expose the darker side of a tourist's dream. Her disappearance sparked a desperate search, a crime so brutal it shook India in a family's fight for justice that refused to fade. This is the story of Liga Scromain, a tale of vulnerability, predation, and a sister's unbreakable resolve. As the rain falls softly outside, settle into the shadows and let this haunting truth unfold. Liga was a soul in search of light. Born in Riga, Latvia in 1984, she grew up in a loving family, her curiosity and warmth defining her. Her sister, Ilse Scromain, was her confidant, their bond a lifeline through life's storms. Liga's struggles with depression began in her 20s, her bright days dimmed by bouts of despair. She turned to travel, finding solace in new horizons, her journals filled with poetry and sketches. And in 2017, she met Andrew Jordan, an Irish musician whose free spirit matched hers. They fell in love, their shared dream of a simpler life leading them to India. She wanted to heal, Ilse later said, her voice soft with memory. Kovalam was her hope. Kovalam, with its Ayurvedic retreats and serene beaches, was a magnet for seekers like Liga. In February 2018, she and Andrew arrived, enrolling in a treatment center for holistic therapy. Liga embraced the routine, yoga, herbal remedies, meditation, her mood lifting as the weeks passed. She wore flowing dresses, her blonde hair catching the sun, her smile returning. Andrew, supportive but restless, explored the town while Liga dove deeper into her healing. On March 14th, 2018, she told Andrew she wanted to visit the beach alone, a short auto rickshaw ride away. "I need some air," she said, her voice calm. She wore a green scarf and carried a small bag, her journal tucked inside. It was a decision that would change everything. Liga was last seen at 10 a.m., climbing into a rickshaw near the treatment center. The driver, a local man, dropped her at Kovalam Beach, where she wandered the shore, her footprints mingling with the tide. Witnesses recalled her sitting by the water, sketching in her journal, her presence serene. But by noon, she was gone. Her bag left behind, contents, phone, wallet, journal, untouched. When she didn't return that evening, Andrew grew uneasy, his calls unanswered. He alerted the center, then the police, his voice trembling. "She's not like this. Something's wrong." The Kovalam police, accustomed to tourist straying, were slow to act, dismissing Liga as a lost hippie. Andrew refused to wait, contacting Ilse in Latvia, his panic infectious. Ilse flew to Kerala within days, her determination a force of nature. She and Andrew scoured Kovalam, knocking on doors, questioning vendors, their desperation growing. Liga's bag, found by a fisherman, was a chilling clue. Its pristine condition suggested she hadn't left willingly. Ilse's pleas to the police fell on deaf ears, their response mired in bureaucracy. "They said she'd turn up," Ilse recalled, her voice bitter. They didn't care. She turned to the media, her tearful appeals airing across India, Liga's flashing on screens. Locals joined the search, their sympathy stirred by Ilse's resolve. Posters blanketed Kovalam, Liga's face, a haunting reminder of the missing. The investigation, sluggish at first, gained traction under public pressure. On March 20, police released CCTV footage from a beachside cafe showing Liga walking alone at 10:30 a.m., her scarf fluttering. A second clip from a nearby road captured a rickshaw speeding away at 11:15 a.m., its driver obscured. Ilse, relentless, tracked down the driver, who admitted dropping Liga at the beach but claimed ignorance of her fate. His alibi held, but the footage sparked the lead. Two local men, Umesh and Adamar, known drug dealers, were seen near the beach that morning. Both had records, petty theft, assault, and a reputation for preying on tourists. Police detained them on March 25, their evasiveness raising alarms. But the breakthrough came on April 20th when a farmer in Thurbulam, a mangrove forest 10 miles from Kovalam, found human remains. Liga's body, decomposed and partially dismembered, was identified by her scarf and a tattoo on her ankle, a lotus flower. Her skull found nearby bore strangulation marks, and her torso showed 9 wounds, some inflicted pre-mortem. The coroner's report was devastating. Liga had been raped, strangled, and mutilated. Her body hung from a tree in a crude attempt to stage a suicide. No drugs were in her system, ruling out an overdose. The brutality stunned Kerala, a state proud of its tourism. She was targeted, Inspector Anil Kumar said, his voice heavy. This was no accident. Umesh and Adamar, under intense interrogation, confessed, though their admissions were tainted by allegations of police torture. They claimed they'd spotted Ligia on the beach, her foreignness allure. Offering her marijuana, they lured her to a secluded spot where their intent turned violent. When she resisted, they raped and killed her, Umesh strangling her as Adamar held her down. Panicked, they dismembered her with a knife, scattering her remains in the mangroves, believing the dense forest would hide their crime. Their confessions, detailed but coerced, described Liga's screams, her fight for life. She wouldn't stop struggling, Umesh said, his voice flat. A detail that haunted Ilza. The evidence was overwhelming. Liga's DNA was found on Umesh's clothes, his knife bearing her blood. Adamar's shoes had mangrove mud matching the crime scene. Their phones showed texts planning to find a tourist, sent days before Liga's disappearance. A witness, a fisherman, saw them near the mangroves on March 14th, their behavior furtive. The police, criticized for their initial inaction, moved swiftly now, their case bolstered by forensics and public outrage. Ilze and Andrew, devastated by the findings, demanded justice, their grief a rallying cry. She trusted this place, Andrew told reporters, his voice breaking. It failed her. The trial began in November of 2021 at Thiruvananthapuram District Court, a media frenzy gripping India. Umesh and Adamar, both in their 30s, sat with bowed heads, their earlier defiance gone. The prosecution's case was meticulous. The remains, the DNA, the confessions, and the witness accounts painted a vivid picture. A pathologist described Liga's wounds, bruises, cuts, strangulation marks. Her resistance clear. He fought until the end, he said, his voice steady. Ilze took the stand, her testimony a sister's love. Liga was gentle but strong. They took her from us. The courtroom, packed with activists and tourists, fell silent. Liga's journal, recovered from her bag, read aloud its final entry, a poem about hope. The defense argued the confessions were coerced, the evidence tainted by police pressure. They claimed Liga's death was accidental, a drug deal gone wrong, but the coroner's findings debunk this. The texts, the DNA, and the mangrove mud were undeniable, each piece a nail in their coffin. The trial, spanning a year, exposed Kerala's underbelly, crime targeting tourists, police, inefficiencies, and a culture that sometimes ignored the vulnerable. Women's groups protested outside, their signs demanding justice for Liga. The case, dubbed the Kovala murder, became a symbol of India's tourism risks, its beauty marred by predation. On December 15, 2022, the verdict came: guilty of rape, murder, and corpse desecration. The judge's voice echoed life imprisonment for both, plus €1,300, 0 cents in compensation to Liga's family. The Marimar showed no emotion, their fates sealed as Ilze wept, clutching Andrew. It's not enough, she said outside, her voice fierce, but it's something. Their appeals, filed in 2023, remain pending, but legal experts doubt their success. The compensation unpaid as of 2025 is a bitter footnote. Liga's family uninterested in money. We wanted her back, Ilze said, her voice soft. The Liga Scrimanke shook Kerala and beyond. Protests swept India, women demanding safer tourism, their chants echoing, no more Ligas. The state tightened regulations on rickshaws and beach vendors, launching night patrols in Kovalam. Ilze, now an advocate, founded a charity in Liga's name, supporting solo female travelers with safety resources. She'd want others to be safe, she said, touching a lotus pendant, Liga's favorite symbol. Andrew, heartbroken, left India, his music now laced with grief. Kovalam's beaches, once idyllic, carry a somber weight. Liga's story, a warning whispered among tourists. What drove Umesh and Adamar to such cruelty? Was it opportunism, entitlement, or a darkness fed by their trade? Their text suggests a planned hunt, Liga's foreignness a target. The dismemberment, crude but deliberate, shows a desire to erase her, their arrogance blinding them to justice. Liga's trust, her belief in Kovalum's promise, was her vulnerability, exploited by men who saw her as prey. The case exposed India's challenges, police apathy, tourist naivety, and a culture that sometimes fails its visitors. How many others wander alone, unaware of the dangers lurking in paradise? As the rain whispers outside, Liga's memory drifts like the tide, a poem left unfinished. Her laughter is gone, but her legacy lives in Ilza's fight, the safety measures, and the awareness her death sparked. This is the story of Liga Scrolmain, a woman whose search for peace ended in tragedy, but whose spirit endures. As we leave Kovalam's shores, another shadow waits, a tale of abuse and retribution in Virginia. But that's for another night. Part 11, the Lorena Bobbitt case. In the quiet suburbs of Manassas, Virginia, where neatly trimmed lawns and picket fences paint a picture of American normalcy, the early 1990s were a time of routine and predictability. But beneath this polished veneer, some homes hid secrets too heavy to bear. Lorena Bobbitt, a 23-year-old manicurist from Ecuador, was a woman of quiet strength, her dreams of a new life in America shadowed by a marriage that became a prison. Her husband, John Bobbitt, a former Marine with a charming smile, hid a darker side, abusive, controlling, and unyielding. In June 1993, their small apartment became the stage for an act so shocking it gripped the world, sparking debates about abuse, justice, and retribution. This is the story of Lorena Bobbitt, a tale of survival, desperation, and a moment that changed how we talk about domestic violence. As the rain falls softly outside, settle into the shadows and let this haunting truth unfold. Lorena Gallo was born in 1969 in Quito, Ecuador. Raised in a modest family with big dreams, her parents Elvia and Carlos instilled resilience and hope, and Lorena, with her warm smile and gentle demeanor, set her sights on America. In 1988, at 19, she moved to Virginia on a student visa, working as a nanny and later a manicurist. She was diligent, saving for a future she envisioned, marriage, a home. In 1989, she met John Bobbitt at a Marine Corps dance. His boyish charm and confident swagger drawing her in. John, 22, was a Lance Corporal, his stories of service captivating. Their courtship was swift, and they married in June 1989, Lorena believing she'd found her American dream. She didn't know she was stepping into a nightmare. The honeymoon phase was fleeting. John discharged from the Marines in 1991 for misconduct, struggled to hold a job, bouncing between bouncer gigs and odd jobs. His charm turned to volatility, his temper flaring over trivialities. A late dinner, a phone call. Lorena, now working long hours at a nail salon, bore the brunt. He belittled her accent, mocked her ambitions, and controlled her finances, demanding she hand over her earnings. By 1992, physical abuse began. Slaps, shoves, bruises hidden under long sleeves. Lorena confided in her friend Etta Hill, her voice trembling. "He's not the man I married." Hill urged her to leave, but Lorena, raised to value marriage, clung to hope, her faith a fragile shield. The abuse escalated, John's cruelty taking darker forms. He forced Lorena into sexual acts against her will, ignoring her pleas. In 1992, he coerced her into an abortion, her dreams of motherhood shattered. "You don't deserve a kid," he sneered, his words cutting deeper than his fists. Lorena's diary, later revealed, documented the torment. "I cry every night. I'm scared. He'll kill me." She called police twice in 1992, but John's charm disarmed officers who saw a happy couple. Lorena, fearing deportation if she left, stayed, her spirit eroding. Friends noticed her spark dimming, her once vibrant eyes shadowed. "She was trapped," Hill said, her voice heavy. June 23, 1993 was a muggy night in Manassas. John, out drinking with friends, returned home after midnight drunk and belligerent. Lorena was asleep in their apartment, was woken by his demands for sex. She refused, exhausted from a 12-hour shift. But John didn't listen. He raped her, she later testified, his weight pinning her as she sobbed. When it was over, he passed out, leaving Lorena trembling, her mind a storm of fear and rage. She stumbled to the kitchen, her hands shaking, and grabbed a 12-inch carving knife. What happened next would stun the world. In a dissociative haze, Lorena returned to the bedroom, the knife gleaming in her hand. She cut John's penis, severing it with a single slice, his screams piercing the night. Blood soaked the sheets as John writhed, clutching himself. Lorena, dazed, fled the apartment, the organ still in her hand. She drove aimlessly, her mind blank. Before tossing it into a field near a 7-Eleven, realizing the gravity of her act, she called 911, her voice frantic. "I hurt my husband, he's bleeding." Police found John in agony, rushing him to Prince William Hospital. A search team guided by Lorena's directions recovered the organ, preserved on ice. After a 9-hour surgery, doctors reattached it, a medical marvel that fueled headlines. Lorena was arrested that night, her face pale, her clothes bloodied. Manassas buzzed with shock, neighbors whispering behind curtains. The story exploded globally, tabloids dubbing it the Bobbitt case, its salacious details a media frenzy. Lorena, charged with malicious wounding, faced 7 years in prison. John, recovering, faced charges of marital sexual assault, a rare prosecution at the time. The case, with its graphic nature, became a cultural phenomenon, sparking jokes on late-night shows, but also igniting a serious debate about domestic violence. Feminist groups rallied behind Lorena, seeing her as a survivor pushed to the edge, while others vilified her as a vengeful wife. The investigation was meticulous, both Lorena and John under scrutiny. Police searched the apartment, finding blood spatter, the knife, and Lorena's diary, its pages a chronicle of abuse. Medical exams confirmed her injuries, bruises, vaginal trauma, consistent with rape. Witnesses, including Hill and salon clients, described Lorena's fear, her body language that of a battered woman. John's history emerged, prior assaults on women, a pattern of aggression. His friends, loyal at first, admitted his boasts about teaching Lorena a lesson. The defense hired Dr. Susan Feister, a psychiatrist who diagnosed Lorena with PTSD and dissociative disorder, triggered by years of trauma. She wasn't in control, Feister said, her voice calm. She was surviving. John's narrative was different. He claimed the sex was consensual, the cutting an act of jealousy over his flirtations. She was crazy, he told police, his charm faltering under scrutiny. His assault charge, tried first in November 1993, tested his story. Lorena's testimony, raw and tearful, detailed the rape, her voice breaking as she described his laughter. The jury, swayed by medical evidence and her diary, deliberated briefly but acquitted John, citing insufficient proof of intent. The verdict crushed Lorena. Her fear of disbelief realized. "They didn't see me," she later said, her voice soft. Lorena's trial in January 1994 was a global spectacle. The Manassas courthouse was packed. Protesters outside chanting, "Lorena, we believe you." She pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, her defense arguing the abuse drove her to a breaking point. Feister's testimony was pivotal, describing Lorena's dissociative state. She didn't plan it. It was a cry for help. Hill recounted Lorena's bruises, her voice trembling. She was scared every day. The knife, shown in court, drew gasps, its blade a stark symbol. Lorena took the stand, her testimony a gut punch. "I just wanted him to stop hurting me." The gallery, filled with survivors, wept, their hands clasped. The prosecution painted Lorena as vengeful, her act premeditated. She knew what she was doing, they argued, pointing to her flight with the organ. But John's credibility faltered. His acquittal didn't erase his history, and jurors questioned his charm. The defense played a 911 tape. Lorena's voice panicked, not calculated. After 7 days, the jury deliberated for 6 hours. On January 22, 1994, they returned not guilty by reason of insanity. Lorena was ordered to undergo 45 days of psychiatric treatment, a ruling met with cheers and tears. "I'm free," she whispered, embracing her lawyer. John, in the gallery, stormed out, his face dark. The aftermath was transformative. Lorena, released in March 1994, rebuilt her life, opening a salon and founding the Lorena Gallo Foundation to support domestic violence survivors. She remarried, raising a daughter, her strength a beacon. "I survived," she said in a 2019 interview, her voice firm. John capitalized on fame, starring in adult films and media stints, but legal troubles, assault, theft, followed. In 2009, He apologized on TV, but Lorena dismissed it, focused on her mission. "I don't look back," she said, her smile steady. The case reshaped discourse. It exposed domestic violence's hidden toll, sparking shelters and hotlines across the U.S. Virginia tightened marital rape laws. Lorena's story, a catalyst. Manassas, once a sleepy suburb, became a symbol of survivor resilience. Lorena's name whispered in support groups. Her diary, published in parts, inspired countless women to speak out. "She gave us a voice," a survivor said, clutching a locket with Lorena's photo. The apartment, now a different family's home, holds no trace of that night. But its echoes linger. What drove Lorena to that desperate act? Was it rage, survival, or a mind broken by years of torment? Her PTSD diagnosis suggests a woman pushed beyond endurance, her act a reflex against a predator. John's abuse, documented and undeniable, raises questions of accountability. How many abusers hide behind charm, their victims silenced by shame? Lorena's trust, her dream of love, was her vulnerability, exploited by a man who saw her as property. The case, a cultural touchstone, asks, how far must someone be pushed before they break? As the rain whispers outside, Lorena's memory burns bright, a survivor's flame. Her pain is healed, her legacy thriving, and the lives she saved, the laws she shaped, and the courage she inspired. This is the story of Lorena Bobbitt, a woman who fell, but rose to change the world. As we leave Manassas, the shadows pause, but their truths remain. The rain continues to fall, a soft veil over the stories we've uncovered tonight, from the olive groves of Palagonia to the beaches of Covalum, from the pubs of Wicklow to the suburbs of Manassas. These 11 tales have peeled back the layers of human darkness, greed, betrayal, rage, and desperation. Each victim, a light extinguished, left echoes that reshaped communities, laws, and lives. Their stories, though steeped in sorrow, carry a quiet power, reminding us of the resilience of those who seek justice, the courage of those who speak, and the strength of those who survive. As the night deepens, these shadows linger, not to haunt, but to teach, about the fragility of trust, the cost of silence, and the hope that rises from truth. Shadows of the Past leads you now, but the rain will return, carrying more stories from the edges of memory. Dim the lights, let the quiet settle and rest, knowing these truths will not be forgotten. Until we meet again, may the shadows guide you gently into sleep. Good night.